All right, hey Raul. First off, thanks for sending these over. My first impressions, like I said in the email, is this is really, really strong work. And I've glanced at the pages a couple of times now, and some I can't find anything to say. so I hope that's okay. But yeah, I'm very impressed overall, and but yeah, let's go to the beginning and go through all of these. So um, so first off, you're definitely able to take complex scenes and break them down in a way that makes it highly readable. You know, like this could easily be a complete cluster of like unreadable mess, and it's not. Um, the background is all relatively simply colored. You're not doing a whole lot of rendering in the background just because, I mean, as far as like detailed contrast, which would draw attention away from the characters, which is good. Um, Excellent use of things like color holds, on the backgrounds here, creating that separation between the foreground and the background. And so yeah, all of this is really, really strong stuff and very impressive. Um, Similar thing here, like excellent use of color holds and even creating some atmosphere between these characters and this character is very strong. Um, and I love the fact that you've sort of uh, kind of framed, the action up here with that bright sun right behind the guys, or the bright sky right behind the bad guy's head here. All that shows that you're thinking about, storytelling. You're thinking about the flow of the page and how the reader's eye gets pulled around. So all of that is very, very solid. Um, some of these smaller panels, and I don't even think this is your fault necessarily, but they're a little harder to read to me just at a glance. But that's probably just me being picky. Um, I would like to see a little more separation somehow between this guy here and what's behind him. Like there is some contrast there, of course, like in his sleeves, but I don't know. I have to play around with this panel myself and then figure out a way to kind of push the bad guy back a little bit more than he is. But that's a tough panel. I would struggle with that too, I think. But the rendering is very consistent from page to page. Like the style doesn't slide around in different ways, which is pretty common with beginners. That's not something you're dealing with. Um, and here, same thing. You've got excellent atmosphere in the background. You've got the detail where it matters, and there's when you've got characters that are so known by their colors, you probably don't have the flexibility of you might find in some other books of being able to wash this, in some darker color or something to draw attention here, because we're wanting people to notice the sword and all this stuff too, and so I think you've handled that about as well as you can handle that. And yeah, so yeah, excellent stuff. I'm trying to find something wrong, but I like these a lot. One thing that I would consider, and it would take a little bit of extra work, especially on a page like this, is maybe doing some color holds back here on these lines to make them kind of, maybe a little warm orange or red or something. But I love this color scheme in general. This orange against the blue works really, really well. And I wasn't sure if the line art included these shadows or if you added that yourself. But if you added it yourself, you did a really good job with it. If you didn't, then the other guy did. And but yeah, all of this is really strong. It's again a complicated scene that could have been a lot harder to read. Pages like this are, they kind of work or they don't. Um, The one thing I feel like the rendering on the faces here, it feels a little overdone to me, especially around the noses. Um, and I get what you're trying to do, and this might just be my personal preference, but especially on female faces, they tend to be a little softer with less harder lines. And I'm thinking mainly about these side of the nose area, but that might just be my personal preference. Um, and but yeah, I mean, this is all really solid work. Yeah, don't have anything to say. I do have something to say on some pages coming up because I looked at them earlier, but um, this is just a cover, so it's kind of hard to. I mean, the cover works. Covers are hard to judge as far as coloring. You stayed in the lines and the colors work, so let's go look at some more sequentials. Um, this was a page that at first glance I thought could have been a little clearer, especially like getting the girl to read here, and she's got this orange thing, of course, that makes her stand out. But like, I wonder if it doesn't need a little bit of atmosphere, maybe. I don't feel like I'm getting the sense of scale in this panel that I am this panel. Um, but again, that's me having to kind of be picky because this is very strong work. Um, yeah, like I said, I'm just kind of trying to think of anything else to say here, but you've got shadows where they should be. You're drawing attention up here. All of this is good. This is one of the pages that I thought was one of the weaker pages, and I think it's because of the background. Like, the background feels kind of muddy on this page, and I think it's because of some of the color mixing that's happening. Like, because you've got this kind of purpley color, which might be okay, but it's blending into this red and getting pretty dark. Um, but these characters are yellow. So as you know, there's a lot of push and pull to try to figure out, how to make them stand out. I'm kind of throwing around some ideas, but I don't know if that's a good idea or not. My gut instinct is to try a different color there, but that's something you have to play around with and see what would work best. But yeah, here too, like, it's a subtle gradient. It just feels like it's mixing in strange ways to me. Um, like it's messing with the contrast in the foreground or something. Um, yeah, same thing here. Like, this just feels dark and kind of muddy, but that just might be me. The rendering, as far as everything else, I like a lot. Um, Definitely works for me. This is another strong page. You've done an excellent job of, like, framing, framing the action with these characters kind of in the dark. Same thing here. Like, these people aren't drawing a lot of attention. And yeah, again, a really busy page, or busy panel. And I think this works. Like, I was thinking about this one. If I was doing it myself, that I might try to simplify all of this a little bit more. Like, maybe just a little less saturation, even if it's just in this area behind them, so that they stand out a little bit more. This is they're not lost completely. I think this works. But, like, I think one thing you could do is make sure that, like, you could probably use the blue of this thing here, and, like, make sure that that's one of the only blues, that color, in the panel. This is something another colorist told me a while back. If you want to draw attention to something in a panel, have one thing in that panel a unique color if possible. And you've basically done that, but I think some of this blue and this blue pulls away a little bit, so you could probably just change those to be something a little bit warmer. It's an idea. This isn't bad. It's really not. Like I said, I'm kind of stretching to try to find problems with it, but critiques can be good too, right? So, yeah, this is all really strong. I love the purple back here. It kind of pushes everybody back. So yeah, that all works. And this was another scene, and I'm not a big fan of like panels like this, and I'm probably biased a little bit because of that. I think all this works. I think these guys probably shouldn't be local color, like because this here and this here is probably too close to the same color. Like if I very quickly, and this is going to be ugly, but you'll get the idea. Oh, that's also a little bit more here. I mean, I'm not saying that's the perfect color to use, but you know, whatever the outside color is, probably. Not orange. I would probably stay away from warmer colors, but yes, I mean something in that range, just to help create some more separation. You could probably go a good bit lighter also on these guys since they're a little further back, and like I said, this whole area is kind of hard to read, but I don't think it's your fault. One thing that I wanted to point out on this one is you are separating foregrounds and backgrounds really well. Like, that's not an issue. But sometimes, especially when you've got black gutters, like even these gutters aren't all equal. Like, and this is a problem to me in the line art, which is not your fault. But are the gutters white or are the gutters black? Or are they something else? So like when you have panels like this, sorry, let me get on another layer. When you have panels like this where they're only separated by a black gutter, you probably need to use different background colors. Because it doesn't really, I mean, this is not going to be exact, but it doesn't really read as two different panels clearly, especially since you have two different characters here. It's like, are they fighting at the same time? Are they fighting each other? Like, what's going on? So even just, like, to me, the background here in this panel is just too, I don't know, something's too close here in the background. I would probably change this background color and change this to something different. And it might just be changing this one fixes it. But this all kind of reads to me as one panel when it shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of to say here. Alright, let's keep going. Oh, this is another great page. Really good page. I love your glows are awesome. I think this artist is probably influenced by, like, a lot of people. Stuart Eminem, the way he does lights. It reminds me a lot of that. And I wonder, this is probably a bit of a stretch and probably unnecessary, but I would probably at least try to see if, like, let's see, if I put this, I've just got like a multiply layer on this real quick just to see what this looks like. It's probably going to be too dark, but I wonder if doing this would just add a little bit of depth so that these lights over here are further away. And that might all be too dark. I'm just kind of throwing out an idea. But I think it pulls the focus a little bit more here. But I don't know, it might be too much. Just an idea. Yeah, like I said, I hope you get your money's worth out of this. I feel like a lot of this is just good. Let's see. Same thing here as in the other panel. Like, if you change the background, let's see. Can I select this? I guess I could open your PSD file, but let me just see if I can grab this color. This is not going to be exact at all, but let's see what happens. I didn't quite select the whole thing, but like, you see how much better that panel separates now? I'm not saying use pink, you could use whatever here probably, but I think it separates better. The panel differences read clearly. And maybe even the same thing here between this. Sorry, my thing's not cooperating. There we go. Between this panel here and this, you know, maybe this is a different color, or this fades down a little bit into a different color or something. Like when the backgrounds are all similar, it just makes it a little bit harder to separate the panels themselves. And especially when there's a lot of odd shaped panels, I think it's even more important. Same thing here. Black gutters with a pretty dark background, and like this panel with the red background reads really clearly. I think if you, and all you would have to do, I think, is again just this background one here, like just that background if that was a different color. I mean, I'm changing everything here, but you know, that would separate that a little bit better. Those greens are tough. CMYK just kills them. There's a little different tone here. It definitely has, and I'm guessing you're probably either a big fan of anime or you're or you just like anime styles, whatever. It definitely like feels like a frame from like an anime movie, which is cool. I like anime. Some of the rendering on this is a little rough. That might just be a decision you wanted to make here, but that's fine. May have been on a crunch or. But yeah, all this I think works. I like the sky. I like the brushiness in the sky. All right, more Power Rangers. Wow, it's a lot of characters. I think you're doing a good job of rendering where it matters, especially in a busy panel like this. Like you're not overdoing trying to render everybody equally. And it's hard too when, you know, your bad guys are gray a lot, it seems like, and gray can be hard to work with because it usually just absorbs the environment color, you know. And for whatever reason, to me, the red on this page, is it really? Yeah, it doesn't come across quite as red as some of the others. Like the red and pink Rangers seem kind of a little closer than they maybe should be, but I don't know. I'm not a Power Ranger expert. This artist is excellent too. I mean, you're doing all the right things. I mean, it's a very, what could have been a train wreck of a panel in the wrong colorist hands is not a problem. That's a very busy panel. Lots of elements and different planes, foreground, background, and way back there. And I think you've handled it really well. Contrast where it matters. One thing, and I don't know what's happening in the story here, but if he's like walking away and he looks evil or something, like maybe he's, you know, in kind of in shadow, or at least partially in shadow. Let's see, I'm just gonna experiment here for a second. And this isn't gonna be like exact, of course, but like I wonder if whoops. Like that might be getting a little too dark, but you see what I mean? Like I think it would be just a little bit more dramatic with him walking out of the scene looking like he's up to no good, you know? Just an idea. Again, having to be picky here. This is another panel that something jumped out at me. So anytime, I'm going to open up a new thing here for a second. Anytime you want to blend, let's see, let's go back. Where were we? Lost my place. All right. So we're blending from this blue to that orange. It's really, really hard to blend two complementary colors. Do it this way without ending up with like this just dead, muddy, brownish stuff in the middle of it. And it doesn't usually look great. And what I would recommend doing is if you want to do a transition like that, you usually need another color in the middle. So, like if we're, it kind of depends on the direction you're going, but you want to find some, like if you look at it on the color wheel, this is a magic picker, which is an extension for Photoshop I like a lot. You kind of have to go through some other colors to get there. You know what I mean? And I would consider like grabbing like a color in the middle, and I don't know if that's the right one exactly, but it's close. Maybe a little bit more reddish. But you need like something to connect the two. You know what I mean? And even putting a little bit of like reddish stuff in here, maybe. I don't know. I feel like it needs to be more saturated. But I don't know. I'm kind of I would have to experiment too with this, but we've almost got the whole rainbow in here now. But I would try to warm up the middle, because otherwise you end up with this kind of, see how this is almost completely gray? Like as I'm color picking over here, it's just gray. So it just doesn't look great. And this happens in nature, like, you know, and if you were to be able to color pick the sky, you'll get some strange colors like this. But just a little bit of warmth along that transition, and this is, probably shouldn't be this opaque. I would have to play around with it. But, you know, kind of take it through a color to transition, to make that transition a little bit smoother. You know, and again, mine's not a good example here. I would have to, the colors would probably have to shift a little bit overall, but usually throwing in some color in the middle that's a little bit more saturated will make that transition a little bit better. So like that blue through this purple to the orange doesn't feel as just kind of dead gray, you know. And again, I think it's just kind of the way the colors are blending. There's just some weird stuff happening, like this weird brownish color that's very dark in here. I just felt like some colors may have gotten layered in there that it might be doing some things you didn't intend. I don't know. Same thing back here. Like, again, this is almost going totally gray right here in the middle. And I don't know. I think maybe if the sky itself wasn't quite as blue, but maybe a little bit more red or something, that's a hard transition to make in a short period without something else in the middle. And there's really not a exact way to always color these things in these scenarios. But one thing that I like to do that can be kind of dramatic on things like this, especially where it's so close, but then you've got these other elements over here, that kind of just draw attention because they're so bright. One thing that I like to do, I'm just going to draw a box and then get like a soft brush, usually in like multiply or something. And I don't know if you've ever seen this in like old movies and stuff, but they'll like do these kind of like a light strip. Whoops. Like the light strip right across the eyes. This is too much and it's weird color. It's too green. I'd probably want to warm it up or something. It's too dark too. But and this is a pretty fuzzy example of this. You could actually come in here and let's see. Hold on a second. Could probably clean this up a little bit. I don't know. Like it just kind of helps to pull in that focus a little bit more, and it gets rid of some of the stuff around it that's really not that important. Same thing even here. I would probably do something like this in this panel because it's such a wide panel, and the action is in such a narrow part of it that it would I don't know, it'd be something like maybe just on this edge a little bit. It doesn't even have to be that much, and that still got that weird green color. But yeah, it just helps to pull the eye a little bit more to the right, And then in the last panel, again, I just feel like there's some color mixing here that's doing weird stuff. Like this is this grayish stuff back here. I don't feel like there's enough contrast between the background and the wings of this guy here. I don't know. I'd have to play around with that a little bit too. I just feel like it needs more contrast between the foreground and the background. Yeah, I like this page. I'm looking for something. Yeah, I don't have anything to say on this one. Sorry. Alright, last one. I feel like these things should be a different color. Sorry, I keep changing brushes. I feel like these should be a different color than the background. I feel like they're a little lost or something. I don't know. I feel like this blue could be a little brighter through here. But yeah, I mean, this is, I know I've said it a couple of times now, but it's really strong work. I mean, I'm glad you're getting professional work here, it looks like, which is awesome. And so yeah, if you have questions about any of this, if you want to follow up, that's fine too. I'll be happy to do a follow-up video on any of this. If you want to, I'm not saying you need to make any changes or anything, but if you just have follow-up questions about any of it, don't hesitate to get in touch. That's no problem at all. So what I'll do is I'll get this put up on YouTube as an unlisted video, so no one will have the link except for you. And so that's usually the easiest way to make that work. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns at all, just let me know. And best of luck to you.